Okay, so a difficult decision is a story about two friends that went to play at the park. Okay, and one of them finds something, so his friend tells him his the right thing to do. Okay, and we will find out whether or not the boy does the right decides to do the right thing, or he doesn't. And our essential question for this week is, what do good citizens do? A citizen is a person that belongs to a community. Okay, so for example, you guys are citizens of Perside or Egypt. Okay, so what do you do to be a good citizen? Okay, for example, we don't throw trash on the street, we follow the law, we treat each other with respect, we follow the laws in the street, we don't do bad things. These are all things that makes us good citizens. Okay, there are other things that people should do to be good citizens. Let's find out what happened between Paul and his friend. Okay, a difficult decision. A difficult decision means a hard decision. And the word decision means to decide what to do. Okay, let's start reading. My best friend Paul and I were excited to go to the park after school. The park had a new fort. The parks department let the school choose what kind of equipment to build, and the fort got the most votes. After school, Mom and I met Paul and his dad at the park. Paul and I raced to the top of the tower. I win, I'm the champion, I shouted. Look, Paul, someone left the newest game master here. It's mine now. Okay? So the story begins by two friends meeting at the park so they can go play on the new fort. A fort is like a new, okay, how can I explain it? A fort is like a tall building or a tall tower. Okay, as you see here, this is the fort. Okay, so in a playground, they have many parts where they have swings, they have the monkey bars, they have the slide. So the two boys met at the park so they can play on the new fort. As you see here, the fort is like a high area or high building that is built in the playground. Okay, what happened? The community made a vote, and the kids chose that they want a new fort to be built. So the new fort got the most vote, and the community built it for the kids. So what happened? Paul met his friend. Okay, this boy met his friend Paul after school so they can play together. And while the first thing they did was they raced. They ran all the way to the top of the tower. So the boy says, I win, I'm the champion. The champion, as we said, is another word for winner. Okay, the boy finds, and when they reach the top, the boy finds a new like a new PlayStation game. It's called the new Game Master. So he says, look what I found. I found it, I keep it. So let's see what Paul thinks. Okay, Paul raised his eyebrows and looked thoughtful. Wyatt, you cannot keep that Game Master, he said. You have a responsibility to return it. It's your duty. I asked, haven't you ever heard the saying, finders keepers, losers weepers? I have rights. I found it, so I'm claiming it. Okay, so the boy who was telling us the story said that he found it and he's going to keep it. So what does his friend Paul say? His friend Paul thinks differently. Okay, this is called point of view. What is a point of view? A point of view is what the characters of the story think or feel. So the boy who is telling us the story says when he raced, he got up on the tower first and he's the winner. And as soon as he reaches the top, he finds a video game. So he tells his friend, I'm the winner and I found this game, so I'm keeping it. Does his friend agree? No. His friend Paul's disagree and has a different point of view. He raises his eyebrows and says, "No, Wyatt, you cannot keep it. It's your responsibility. Remember, responsibility is what you are expected to do." Okay, so he tells his friend Wyatt, "You have to return it. It's your responsibility and it's your duty as a good citizen." So what does the boy say? The boy says, "No, I found it, I keep it." And he even tells him a saying that says, "Finders keeper. Whoever finds something keeps it, and whoever loses weeps." It means he cries. So finders, keepers, losers, weepers means the finder keeps it and the loser weeps, means he cries over what he lost. And Wyatt thinks he has rights. He thinks he has permission, that since he found it, he's allowed to say that it's his. Okay? So let's see what happened. On the next page it says, "You can do whatever you want, Wyatt, but you know it's wrong to keep it," Paul said. Then he added, "Whenever there are issues like this at school, you're the one who helps solve the problem. Now you aren't taking your own advice." Okay, so Paul tells his friend Wyatt, he says, you can do whatever you want to. You can do whatever you want. But he's reminding his friend, when they have a problem like this in school, Wyatt is always the first one to try to fix this problem or solve this problem. So Paul is reminding his friend that Wyatt is always trying to fix other people's problem. When someone loses something, he always tries to help them find it. And he's telling his friend that now he's not listening to his own advice. He's not listening to what he usually tells other people to do. On the second paragraph says, "Then Paul added, I volunteered my thoughts. If you don't want to take the help I offered, there's nothing I can do." Paul was right. I couldn't keep the game because it wasn't mine. The person who lost it would be upset. I cleared my throat and said in my best deep voice, "I've determined that you're right." "I'm delighted you decided to do the right thing," said Paul. Okay, so Paul continued to talk to his friend Wyatt. He told him his opinion, what he thinks, okay, or his point of view. He reminded him that when they have issues or problems like this in school, Wyatt would always try to help the person fix his problem or find whatever he lost. And he's telling him to follow his own advice. Paul said, "I volunteered my thoughts." Here he says, "I volunteered my thoughts." I'm offering you what I'm thinking, and if you want to listen, okay. If you don't want to listen, it's up to you. So Wyatt is now listening to his friend, and he realized he changed his point of view. So he told Paul, "You are right, I cannot keep it, and I've determined to return the game, or try to find its owner. Okay, I'm delighted you decided to do the right thing. I'm happy," the word delighted means happy, "that you decided to do the right thing." Okay, as you guys notice, here we have the story has a dialogue. The dialogue are the words that are said by the characters, okay, as we've taken before. On the last page, "We told my mother what happened. She walked around the park with us so we could try to find the owner of the game. Soon we saw a boy and his mom looking for something. He looked hopeless, and he burst into tears when we asked him if the game was his. 'Yes,' he wailed, 'I lost my game master a little while ago. I should have been more careful.'" So, since Wyatt decided to look for the owner, they went around the park looking to see if someone lost it. So while they were looking, they saw a boy and his mom looking for something. And the boy almost cried when they asked him, "Did you lose the video game?" He said, "Yes, I lost it a while ago, and it's his fault, and he should be more careful." Okay? If you guys remember, the word hopeless, it's a suffix. Hopeless means without hope. He almost lost hope that he couldn't find it. And he told him, "I should be more careful." Careful means, also this is a suffix, which means I should be full of care. He should be more careful with his things. Afterward, Mom and I walked home. I was glad I returned the toy to the boy. So I made a promise to myself to always try to do the right thing. Now that is a vow I can keep. Okay, so on his way home, Wyatt decided he was proud of himself for returning the toy, and he made a promise to himself. He told himself that he will always try to do the right thing. Now that is a vow I can keep. That is a promise that he can keep. He knows that he can keep this promise. Okay? So if I ask you to go back to the story and ask you, how are Paul and Wyatt good citizens? How do you guys know that these two boys are good citizens? Wyatt and his friend Paul. Okay? If you think about it, and in the beginning, Paul gave advice or volunteered his advice by telling his friend, you cannot keep this. Okay? And he kept telling him that the right thing to do is to return it to the owner, because you cannot keep what's not yours. And because Wyatt is a good person, he knew that it was his responsibility or his duty to return the game. Okay, and what did they both do after that? They both searched for the owner of this game. They went around looking in the park until they found the boy who owned the game. Okay, what is something you do to be a good citizen? What is something that you do as a young kid or a student to be a good citizen? What do you do for your community to be a good citizen? Okay. As I mentioned while we were reading the story, that this week we have something called point of view. So what is a point of view? Let's look. Okay, a point of view is what the character in the story thinks or feels. It says the character's point of view is how the character sees things and what the character thinks about the events in the story. Okay, and you also find words such as I, my, and me, and mine, who is speaking. Okay, so in the beginning of the story, we have a chart here that shows the character and the clue and the point of view. Okay, the characters are the people in the story. Clue is a sentence from the story, the sentence from the story that the author wrote to help us understand what the character was thinking. Okay, for example, in the beginning of the story, Wyatt, the boy that was speaking, he says, it's mine now, right? So they race up to the tower or the fort, and then Wyatt finds the game master. So what does he say? He says, it's mine now. So what do you think that means? What do you think what's his point of view? He thinks now his point of view is that since he found the game, that he gets to keep it. Okay? Wyatt thinks he should keep a game that he found, the game master. Okay? What is Paul's point of view? How do we know what Paul thinks? From the story, it says, Wyatt, you cannot keep that game master. You have a responsibility to return it. So what this sentence from the story tells us that Wyatt does not agree. He tells his friend, no, you cannot keep this game. It's your responsibility or your duty to return it. So Paul thinks Wyatt should not keep the game master. It is his duty to return it. Okay, that's what he thinks. He does not agree with his friend. Okay, after they start talking about this issue or this topic, Wyatt reminds him that Wyatt usually helps his friends at school when they have a problem when they lose something. So Wyatt changes his point of view. What does Wyatt say? I have determined that you're right. I have decided that you're right. He's telling Paul that what he said is right. So Wyatt thinks Paul is right and decides to look for the owner so he can return the game. Okay, so again, what is the point of view? The point of view is what the characters in the story think or feel. You also find words such as I, my, me, and mine to show you what the characters are thinking. The clue is the sentence given by the author to help you understand what is the character's point of view. Okay. Also, the genre is realistic fiction. We all know that realistic fiction, the word fiction means made up or not real. Then what is realistic fiction? Realistic fiction, we all know that the story is not real and the characters are made up, but the events in the story can happen in real life. This is something that can happen to us. You in school or in the park. Sometimes you are playing in the break and you find money. What do? Many of you come, pick up the money and give it to the teacher. Tell them, Miss, I found this in break. And you give it to the teacher, and the teacher goes around asking who lost money, how much did you lose. This shows that you guys are good citizens and you guys are good students. Okay, so this story is not a real story and the characters are not real, but the things or the events that happen in the story can happen in real life. It can happen to you yourself, whether in school or at the club or even in the playground. Okay.